So in this video, I just wanted to point out the different parts of the frequency distribution. So you've already looked at the definitions, and we have this table here. We're going to look at those definitions compared to this table. So we have classes. The classes are what the groups are named, or how they have been grouped. Sometimes classes are called bins. If you think of a bin and you take a ball and you put it in that bin, or you can take a item and put it in a bin, that's where the term bin comes from, because these first 28 actors that were between the ages of 21 and 30, they've been put into that bin or into that class. Okay, so the classes are listed on the left hand side of the table, and in this case our classes are the age of actresses, and we've placed them into 21 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50. Those are our classes, etc. Okay, the lower class limit. Lower class limits are the value on the right hand side, the 21, the 31, that lowest value in the class. And then the upper class limit are the highest values in the class, so 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. Okay, so now let's talk about the class width. We find the class width by subtracting two consecutive lower class limits, which I have two consecutive lower class limits circled, or we could take two consecutive upper class limits and subtract those. 70 minus 60 is still 10. Okay, so as long as you're selecting two lower class or two upper class that are consecutive, you'll get your class width. And in this case, the class width is 10 no matter what you subtract when you're subtracting two lower class or two upper class. Okay, so that is your class width. Now, we'll use our class width in a second. Finding class midpoints. The long way to find your class midpoints is by averaging the upper and lower class limits of each class. So that work is shown here on the screen, where I have taken lower class limit, upper class limit, 21 and 30, you add those together, divide by 2. 31 and 40, add those together, divide by 2, and you get your midpoints of 25.5, 35.5, 45.5. Do you notice that there's a pattern there? It increases by 10 each time, and the reason it increases by 10 each time is because the class width was 10. Remember, we had a class width from the previous slide of 10. That means maybe you don't want to do all the work for the last 4 classes. You find the first 2. You go 25.5. The next one's 35.5. Oh yeah, I had a class width of 10. So 35.5 plus 10, there's 45.5. There's my third class midpoint. Add 10 again, 55.5. There's my fourth class midpoint. So it does create a pattern. You can always find your class midpoint by finding the average if you prefer, or you can just find that first one and the second one. Remember, oh hey, that class width, it creates a pattern, and then just add that class width each time to find the other class midpoints. Now, class boundaries. The class boundaries are the values that are outside the classes. Each class has 2 boundaries. So I'm going to go ahead and write down, all the work's done for us, but I'm going to go ahead and write down what the class boundary for the first class is, 21 to 30. The first class limit, or class boundary, sorry, is 20.5. And the last one is, the second one is 30.5. Now here's the thing. We don't look at that and just know automatically, hey, that first one is 20.5. That's the reason why I originally had the 30 and the 31 circled. That's where you're going to start. You're going to start by averaging the upper class limit of the first class and the lower class limit of the second class. So that's 30 and 31. Add those together, divide by 2. That is 30.5. Okay, go do the next one. 40 and 41. Add those together, divide by 2. That's 40.5. Okay, 50 and 51. Add those together, divide by 2. That would be 50.5. But again, we can notice we had a class width of 10. There's a pattern here. It increases by 10 each time. So we can just add 10. So we have 50.5, 60.5, 70.5, 80.5, and oh wait, this one, we didn't have that one yet. I knew what it was, but we didn't have it at that time. Now we're going, okay, we're still missing one. We need the one that falls in the front, and so we go 30.5 minus 10. 30.5 minus 10, that's 20.5. Because remember I said each class has two boundaries, a boundary in the front of it and a boundary at the end. So the way that would look is the 30.5 would repeat for the second class, and then the 40.5 for the third, the 50.5 for the fourth, and then 60.5 and 70.5. So each class has two boundaries. That means if you have one, in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes. So we have 7 boundaries. 7 boundaries. And I'm going to circle them here in a second for you. Those 7 boundaries, I'm circling them in the order that you would want to write them or type them in. 20.5, 30.5, 40.5, and then the last 4 there, the bottom left hand of the slide.